My name is Lena. I am 34 years old, and I live in a small American town where everyone knows everyone else's business. My 7-year-old daughter stood in the doorway. It was the day after Christmas. The snow was still falling outside, but inside my house everything went cold. She had a heavy black trash bag slung over her small shoulder. She looked so small, so broken. She didn't say hello. She just looked at me with eyes that seemed too old for her face. Then she dropped the bag. She slowly lifted her shirt. "Grandma said I'm too fat for pretty dresses," she whispered. I stopped breathing. There were purple bruises on her ribs. There were red stripes that looked like they came from a belt. There were distinct handprints on her soft skin. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't ask her a single question right then. My mind went completely quiet. It was a scary kind of quiet. I walked over to her, knelt down, and kissed her forehead gently. I told her to go to her room and play with her toys. Then, I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter. I picked up my car keys. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a soldier. And I was going to war. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Lena. I am 34 years old. I sat in my car in the driveway for a moment before starting the engine. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. I looked at the house I had shared with my husband, David, for 8 years. It was a nice house, a quiet house. But inside, my daughter was hurting, and I had let it happen. I closed my eyes and let the memories flood back. I needed to remember. I needed to see the pattern I had ignored for so long. It didn't start with bruises. It started with words. It started with smiles that didn't reach the eyes. When I first met David's mother, Barbara, I thought she was perfect. She had a spotless house. She baked fresh bread. She dressed in ironed clothes even on Tuesdays. She looked at me up and down and smiled. "You're a bit sturdy, aren't you, Lena?" she had said. I laughed it off. I thought she was just being old-fashioned. I didn't know sturdy was her polite word for fat. I didn't know that in Barbara's world, appearance was the only religion that mattered. Then I married David. David was quiet. He was used to her. He told me, "That's just how mom is. She doesn't mean anything by it." I believed him. That was my first mistake. When I got pregnant with Mia, Barbara didn't knit booties or buy blankets. She bought me a book on post-pregnancy weight loss. She gave it to me at my baby shower, in front of everyone. "We want you to bounce back, dear," she said, "for David." The room went quiet, but nobody said anything. I just smiled and put the book on the table. I wanted to be a good daughter-in-law. I wanted peace. Then Mia was born. She was perfect. She was round and soft and happy. But Barbara didn't see a baby. She saw a project. I remember when Mia was 3, we were at Barbara's house for Sunday dinner. Mia reached for a second dinner roll. Barbara moved the basket away, just a few inches, just out of Mia's reach. "She's had enough, Lena," Barbara said to me. "We don't want her to get heavy. Habits start young." "She's 3, Barbara," I said. "She's growing." "She's heavy," Barbara corrected. "She needs discipline." David kept eating his roast beef. He didn't look up. That was the pattern for 7 years. "That dress is too tight on her. Maybe she should skip dessert." "Are you sure she needs that juice?" "Water is better for her complexion." It was constant. It was like a slow drip of water on a stone. After a while, you stop noticing the drip. You just get used to the wetness. I got used to the criticism. I started to make excuses. "She just wants Mia to be healthy," I told myself. "She loves her, she's just strict." I was a coward. I see that now. I traded my daughter's confidence for a quiet Sunday dinner. Mia started to change. By the time she was 5, she stopped asking for seconds. By 6, she started asking me if her stomach was too big. "Am I fat, Mommy?" she asked me once in the bath. "No, baby," I told her. "You are perfect. You are strong." "Grandma says strong girls don't wiggle when they walk," she said. My heart broke then. But I still didn't stop the visits. I still let them happen. Then came this Christmas. David and I had to work. It was a busy season for both of us. Barbara offered to take Mia for the week. "I'll take her to the city," Barbara said. "We'll see the lights. We'll buy her a nice Christmas dress. It will be our special time." I hesitated. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding the phone. I felt a knot in my stomach, a warning. "It will be good for them to bond," David said. "Mom really wants to spoil her." So I packed Mia's bag. I packed her favorite jeans. I packed her sketchbook. I hugged her tight. "Be good for Grandma," I said. "I will, Mommy," Mia said. She looked nervous. I sent my lamb into the wolf's den. Now, 7 years of concern had turned into bruises. 7 years of discipline had turned into a belt. The mask had finally fallen off. Barbara wasn't strict. She was cruel, and she had hurt my child because she thought I was too weak to do anything about it. She thought I was just sturdy Lena, the quiet wife, the pushover. I opened my eyes. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They weren't shaking anymore. I started the car. I wasn't going to call David. I wasn't going to call the police. Not yet. First, I had to see her. I had to look her in the eye. The drive to Barbara's house took 40 minutes. It was a gray highway, surrounded by dead winter trees. I drove the speed limit exactly. I didn't rush. I needed to be calm. I needed to be ice. I turned off the radio. I didn't want noise. I replayed the image of Mia's back in my mind. The purple marks, the handprint on her arm. Someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave a mark. A 7-year-old girl, my little girl. I pulled into Barbara's driveway. Her house was like her, imposing, brick perfect. The lawn was manicured even in winter. The windows were sparkling clean. It looked like a picture from a magazine, a house where bad things didn't happen. I got out of the car. I didn't slam the door. I walked up the path. I didn't stomp. I rang the doorbell. I waited. I heard footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. Barbara stood there. She was wearing a cream-colored sweater and dark slacks. Her hair was sprayed into a perfect helmet of gold and gray. She saw me, and her smile turned on automatically. It was a reflex. "Lena," she said, "I didn't know you were coming. Did Mia forget something?" She looked behind me, checking for David. She saw I was alone. Her smile faltered just a tiny bit. I didn't say hello. I didn't smile back. I just looked at her. I looked at her hands. They were manicured, red polish, rings on her fingers. Those hands had hit my daughter. "Lena," she asked, "is everything all right?" I stepped forward. She had to step back to let me in. I walked into her foyer. It smelled like lavender and bleach. It smelled clean. "Where is David?" she asked, her voice getting a little higher. "At work," I said. My voice surprised me. It was low, steady. It didn't sound like me. I walked past her into the living room. Everything was in its place. The expensive vases, the white carpet, the family photos on the mantel. There was a picture of David. There was a picture of Barbara. There were no pictures of me. There was one picture of Mia, but it was from when she was a baby, before she got heavy. I turned to face her. Barbara was standing by the door, looking nervous. She knew. Deep down, she knew something was wrong. She was waiting for me to scream. She was waiting for the drama. She was ready to call me hysterical. She was ready to tell David I was crazy. But I didn't scream. I walked the perimeter of the room. I touched the back of her expensive sofa. "You have a lovely home, Barbara," I said. She blinked. She was confused. "Thank you, Lena. Why are you here?" I stopped walking. I looked her dead in the eyes. I let the silence hang there. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. She started to fidget. She smoothed her sweater. She touched her hair. "Mia came home," I said. "Yes," Barbara said quickly. "We had a lovely time." She was a bit difficult about her food, but we managed. "She lifted her shirt," I said. Barbara went still. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her face went pale beneath her makeup. I don't know what she told you," Barbara stammered. "She fell. She's clumsy, Lena. You know she's clumsy because of her weight." She was lying. She was lying to my face, using the same old insult. I walked toward her. She flinched. She thought I was going to hit her. I stopped right in front of her. I was taller than her. I was sturdy, remember. I loomed over her. Then I did the last thing she expected. I opened my arms and hugged her. I felt her body stiffen. She was like a board. She didn't hug me back. I held her tight. I felt her heart hammering in her chest. She was terrified. I leaned close to her ear. I smelled her expensive perfume. It made me sick. "Thank you for loving my daughter," I whispered. I said it with zero emotion. It sounded like a curse. I pulled back. I looked at her one last time. Her eyes were wide, darting around, trying to understand the game. She didn't know the rules anymore. She expected a fight. I gave her nothing. I turned around and walked to the door. "Lena," she called out, her voice trembling. "Lena, wait." I didn't stop. I opened the door and walked out into the cold air. I got in my car and drove away. I looked in the rearview mirror. She was standing in the doorway, watching me. She looked small. She knew she had messed up. But she didn't know how bad it was going to get. She thought she could explain it away to David. She thought she could spin the story. She was wrong. I wasn't going to give her a chance to speak. When I got home, the house was quiet. Mia was in her room. I could hear the faint sound of a cartoon playing. I went into the bathroom and washed my face. I looked in the mirror. I looked different. My eyes were harder. I took a deep breath. Now came the hard part, the clinical part. I went into Mia's room. She looked up from her coloring book. She looked scared when she saw me, like she was in trouble. "It's okay, baby," I said. "Nobody is mad at you. You were so brave to tell me." I sat on the bed. "Mia, I need to take some pictures of your tummy and your back. Is that okay? It's so the doctor can make you feel better." She nodded. "Okay." She lifted her shirt again. I took out my phone. My hands were steady now. I turned on the flash. Click the purple bruise on her ribs. Click. The red stripes on her back. Click the handprint on her upper arm. Every photo felt like a knife in my heart, but I kept taking them. I took close-ups. I took wide shots. I made sure the lighting was clear. I wasn't a mother taking snapshots. I was a forensic photographer. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "Only when I touch it," she said. "Did Grandma hit you with her hand?" I asked. I turned on the voice recorder on my phone. "Yes," Mia said softly. "She said I was stealing bread." She squeezed my arm hard, then she got the belt from Grandpa's closet. The belt, the brown one. She said I had to learn not to be a glutton. I felt bile rise in my throat. I swallowed it down. "Okay, baby, you did good." I saved the recording. Next, I packed a bag. "Come on, Mia. We're going to see Dr. Evans." Dr. Evans had been Mia's pediatrician since she was a baby. He was a kind man with white hair. When he saw the bruises, his face went dark. "Who did this, Lena?" he asked. His voice was serious. "My mother-in-law," I said. "I need it documented, everything, size, color, estimated time of impact. I need a full report." He nodded. He understood. He called in a nurse. They measured the bruises. They wrote everything down. "This is abuse, Lena," he said. "I have to report this." "I know," I said. "Do what you have to do, but give me a copy of everything." When we left the office, I had a thick envelope, medical records. An official doctor's statement citing non-accidental trauma. But I wasn't done. I went home and put Mia to bed. She was exhausted. Then I sat at the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I logged into our phone account. I downloaded the call logs. I printed out 7 years of emails from Barbara. I highlighted every passive-aggressive comment. Subject, diet tips for Mia. Subject, cute clothes in bigger sizes. Subject, discipline at home. I found a text message she sent to David 2 days ago. "Mia is being difficult with food again. I had to be firm. Don't worry if she complains. She needs to learn." I printed it. I went to the closet and got a box. I put everything inside. The photos, the recording, the doctor's report, the emails, the text messages. It was a box of hate. It was a box of pain, but to me it looked like bricks. I was building a wall. A wall between my daughter and that woman. A wall so high and so thick that Barbara would never be able to climb over it. I sat there in the dark kitchen. I heard David's car pull into the driveway. He was home. He didn't know his mother was a monster. Or maybe he did, and he looked away. He didn't know his wife was planning to destroy his family. I closed the box. I slid it under the table. David walked in. "Hey, hun. How are the girls?" He looked tired. He went to the fridge to get a beer. "We're fine," I said. I didn't yell. I didn't tell him what happened. Not yet. If I told him now, he would call his mother. She would cry. She would manipulate him. He would try to fix it. He would ask me to forgive her. I couldn't risk that. I needed the law first. "Good," he said. He kissed the top of my head. "Glad you guys are back." He had no idea that his life was about to explode. The next morning, I waited until David left for work. I called in sick. I kept Mia home from school. I didn't want her out of my sight. I opened the phone book. I didn't want a nice lawyer. I didn't want a family friend. I wanted a shark. I found a name. Richard Henderson. His ad said, "Aggressive family law. We protect your rights." I made an appointment for 11 a.m. I dropped Mia off at my sister's house. My sister, Sarah, was the only one I told. She cried when she saw the bruises. She wanted to drive over and beat Barbara up. "No," I told her. "Violence is what she does. We are going to do something worse. We are going to take away her power." I walked into Mr. Henderson's office. It was cold and modern, glass tables, leather chairs. Mr. Henderson was a sharp man in a gray suit. He didn't smile much. "How can I help you, Mrs. Vance?" he asked. I didn't waste time with a sob story. I didn't cry. I placed the box on his desk. "My mother-in-law beat my 7-year-old daughter with a belt," I said. Mr. Henderson stopped writing. He looked at the box. "I have photos," I continued. "I have a recording of the child's confession. I have a medical report from Dr. Evans confirming non-accidental trauma. I have text messages from her admitting to being firm." I opened the box. and laid the photos out on his glass desk. The purple bruises looked even darker against the shiny surface. Mr. Henderson picked up a photo. He adjusted his glasses. He looked at the doctor's note. "This is severe," he said. "Have you contacted the police?" "Not yet," I said. "I want to ensure my husband cannot stop this. I want sole custody. I want a restraining order against his mother, and I want to sue her for damages." "Your husband is not on board?" he asked. "He doesn't know yet," I said. "He is enmeshed with his mother. If he finds out before the papers are filed, he will warn her. She is wealthy. She is well connected in the church. She will hide assets. She will spin the story." Mr. Henderson looked at me with new respect. He saw that I wasn't just a grieving mother, I was a strategist. "Smart," he said. "If we file for an emergency protective order today, we can have her served by tonight. It will freeze her out immediately. Your husband won't be able to let her near the child legally." "Do it," I said. "This will destroy your marriage, you know that," he said gently. "My marriage ended the moment he let his mother call my daughter fat," I said. "I just didn't sign the papers yet." We spent 2 hours going over the details. I signed document after document, affidavits, restraining orders, custody petitions. It felt like signing a war treaty. "We will serve her," Mr. Henderson said, "and we will send a copy to the district attorney regarding criminal charges." "Good," I said. "And Lena," he asked as I stood to leave, "you are doing the right thing. Most people wait too long." "I waited 7 years," I said. "I waited too long." I left his office. The sun was shining outside, but I felt cold. I felt focused. I drove to my sister's house to pick up Mia. She was eating ice cream. She was laughing. I watched her for a minute through the window. She was safe. I had built the wall. Now I just had to wait for the bomb to drop. That night David came home early. He was whistling. "Mom called," he said. "She sounded weird. She asked if you were okay. She said you acted strange yesterday." I was cutting carrots at the counter. "Chop, chop, chop, did she?" I asked. "Yeah, she wants us to come for New Year's Eve. Just to smooth things over." I put the knife down. I looked at my husband. He was a weak man, a man who wanted everyone to be happy, even if it meant his daughter suffered. "We won't be going to New Year's," I said. "Come on, Lena. Don't be like that. She's getting old. She just wants to see Mia." "Mia is not going back there, David," I said. "You're being dramatic," he said. He rolled his eyes. "It's just one dinner." I didn't fight him. I didn't show him the photos. Not yet. "We'll see," I said. I knew that in about 3 hours, a process server was going to knock on Barbara's heavy oak door. He was going to hand her a stack of papers. And at the same time, a courier was going to drop off a copy for David. I checked the clock on the microwave. 6:30 p.m. The countdown had begun. I went back to chopping carrots. Chop, chop, chop. The silence in the kitchen was heavy. It was the calm before the storm. And I was the one who summoned the thunder. The morning of the first Sunday of the new year was cold. It was the kind of cold that hurts your face when you step outside. The sky was a flat, angry gray. It looked like it wanted to snow again, but the air was too dry. Inside my house, my safe house, where I was staying with my sister, it was warm. But inside my chest, I felt a block of ice. I woke up at 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. I listened to the sound of the heating vents turning on and off. I thought about what I was about to do. Most people think that standing up for yourself feels good. They think it feels like a superhero movie. It doesn't. It feels like you are about to throw up. It feels like you are standing on the edge of a cliff and you have to jump, but you don't know if the parachute will open. I got out of bed and walked to the room where Mia was sleeping. She was curled up in a ball under a pink blanket. Her breathing was soft and steady. I watched her for a long time. I needed to see her. I needed to remember why I was doing this. I looked at the curve of her cheek. I thought about the bruises hidden under her pajamas. The bruises that were fading now, turning from purple to a sickly yellow-green. But they were still there. And the memory of them would be there forever. I went to the bathroom and showered. I scrubbed my skin hard. I wanted to be clean. I washed my hair. I brushed my teeth until my gums hurt. I was preparing myself. It felt like I was putting on armor. I didn't put on a dress. Barbara always wanted me to wear dresses to church. "Pastels, Lena," she would say. "Wear something soft. It makes you look friendlier." Today, I didn't want to look friendly. I wore black trousers. I wore a gray turtleneck sweater. I wore heavy boots. I pulled my hair back into a tight ponytail. I looked in the mirror. I looked tired. There were dark circles under my eyes, but I also looked hard. I looked like a stone. I left Mia with my sister, Sarah. Sarah was drinking coffee in the kitchen. She looked worried. "You don't have to do this, Lena," she said. "The lawyers are handling it. You don't have to go there." "The lawyers handle the law," I said. I poured myself a cup of black coffee. My hand was steady. "Barbara doesn't care about the law. She thinks she is above the law. She cares about the church. That is her house. That is where she keeps her power. I have to take it from her there." Sarah nodded. She didn't argue. She knew I was right. I drove to the church alone. The drive took 20 minutes. Every mile felt long. I passed the park where Barbara used to take Mia and criticize her for not running fast enough. I passed the ice cream shop where Barbara would buy a cone for herself, but tell Mia that fruit is nature's candy. The memories were everywhere in this town. It was a small town. Barbara was a big fish in this small pond. She knew everyone. She was the matriarch, and I was just the girl who was lucky to marry her son. That's what people thought. Lena got lucky. Lena should be grateful. I pulled into the church parking lot. It was packed. It was the New Beginnings service. Everyone came to this one. It was a tradition. I saw the cars. The Lexuses, the BMWs, the clean SUVs. It was a wealthy congregation. Appearance mattered here. If your car was dirty, people noticed. If your children were loud, people noticed. I drove my old sedan. I parked in the back, far away from the front entrance. I sat in the car for 10 minutes. I watched the people walking in. Families holding hands. Husbands and wives smiling. I saw Barbara's car. It was parked in the front row, in a spot reserved for church elders. It was a silver Lexus, shining even under the gray sky. It looked aggressive. It looked like it owned the pavement. I took a deep breath. I grabbed my bag. Inside was my laptop. It felt heavy. It felt like a weapon. I walked up the stone steps of the church. The First Baptist Church was a beautiful building. It had tall white columns and huge oak doors. It looked like a fortress. An usher named Mr. Henderson, no relation to my lawyer, was standing at the door. He was a nice old man. He usually gave me a bulletin and a mint. "Good morning, Lena," he said. He smiled, then he looked behind me. "Where is David and little Mia?" He didn't know. Nobody knew yet. "They aren't coming today," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was too calm. "Oh," he said. "Well, Happy New Year, new beginnings, right?" "Right," I said. I walked into the sanctuary. The smell hit me first. It smelled of old paper, floor wax, and expensive perfume. It was the smell of Sunday morning. It was a smell that used to make me feel safe, but now it made my stomach turn. The room was full. There were hundreds of people. The choir was already singing softly. The organ was humming. The light came through the stained glass windows, painting the floor in red and blue. I didn't walk to our usual pew. We usually sat in the third row, right behind Barbara. That was the rule. The family sits together. The family shows a united front. Today I walked to the back. I sat in the very last pew in the shadows. I wanted to see everything. I scanned the front of the room. I found her immediately. Barbara. She was sitting in the front row, right side, her spot. She was wearing a navy blue suit with a pearl brooch on the lapel. Her hair was done perfectly, stiff, blonde, high. She was sitting with her back straight, her chin up. She looked like a queen on her throne. Next to her, the seat was empty. That was David's seat. She looked lonely, but she also looked defiant. She knew David wasn't coming. She knew I had left. She knew the police had been called. But she was here anyway. She was betting that I would stay home and cry. She was betting that I would hide my shame. She thought she had won. She thought she could just wait for the storm to blow over. She thought she could tell people, "Oh, Lena is having a breakdown," and everyone would believe her. I watched the back of her head. I hated her. It wasn't a hot, fiery hate anymore. It was a cold, absolute hate. It was the kind of hate that makes you very, very focused. The service started. Reverend Miller walked up to the pulpit. He was a good man, I think, but he was weak. He liked Barbara's donations. He liked that she organized the bake sales. He didn't want to see the darkness in her. "Welcome," he said. "Today is a day of truth, a day of new starts." I almost laughed out loud. Truth. We stood up to sing, Amazing Grace. I watched Barbara sing. I saw her mouth moving. She knew every word. She sang loudly. She raised one hand in the air like she was feeling the Spirit. How sweet the sound. How could she? How could she stand there and sing about grace when she had beaten a child less than 2 weeks ago? How could she praise God with the same hands that left bruises on my daughter's ribs? It was a performance. It was all a show. Her whole life was a show. The clean house, the polite smiles, the charity work, it was all a mask to hide the cruelty underneath. I sat down when the song ended. My heart was starting to beat faster now. Thump, thump, thump. The sermon seemed to go on forever. I didn't hear a word of it. I was rehearsing in my head. I was checking the laptop in my bag. Was the battery charged? Yes. Was the file ready? Yes. Finally, the Reverend closed his Bible. Now, he said, as is our tradition on the first Sunday of the year, we will open the floor for testimonies. If anyone has a word from the Lord, or a story of gratitude, please come forward. This was it. Usually, the same three people stood up. Old Mrs. Gable talked about her cats. Mr. Turner talked about his health, and Barbara always stood up to talk about the success of her committee. She loved the microphone. I waited. Mr. Turner stood up. He talked for 5 minutes about his hip surgery. Everyone nodded politely. Then, silence. The Reverend looked around. Anyone else? I saw Barbara shift in her seat. She was preparing to stand. She was smoothing her skirt. She was going to go up there and talk about how hard her year had been. She was going to spin the narrative. No, I stood up. My legs felt heavy like lead, but I stood. I have a testimony, I said. I didn't shout, but my voice carried. The acoustics in the church were good. Heads turned. It started in the back rows and moved forward like a wave. People twisted in their seats. They saw me. Lena, the quiet daughter-in-law. The one who usually sat in the third row and never said a word. I saw the whispers start. I saw the confusion. Barbara froze. I saw her shoulders stiffen. She didn't turn around. She knew. She recognized my voice. Come forward, Lena, the Reverend said. He looked surprised but welcoming. I stepped out of the pew. I walked into the center aisle. It was a long walk. The aisle was red carpet. It felt like walking to the gallows, or maybe walking to a coronation. I focused on the pulpit. I didn't look at the faces of the people I passed. I could feel their eyes on me. I could feel their judgment. Why is she wearing those boots? Why does she look so angry? Where is David? I kept walking. I passed the third row. I passed the second row. I reached the front row. I stopped for just a second. I looked down at Barbara. She was staring straight ahead at the cross on the wall. Her face was pale. A muscle in her jaw was jumping. She was terrified. She was praying that I would just say something nice and sit down. She was praying that I was still the weak, sturdy girl she could control. I walked up the 3 wooden steps to the stage. I stood behind the pulpit. It was large and wooden. I felt small behind it. But then I gripped the sides of it with my hands. The wood felt cool and solid. I looked out at the congregation. 300 faces, neighbors, friends, strangers. They were all waiting. I took the laptop out of my bag. I placed it on the pulpit. The Reverend looked at the laptop. He looked confused. Lena, he whispered. It's okay, Reverend, I said. I just have some pictures to share about my family. He nodded and stepped back. He thought I was going to show holiday photos. He thought I was going to show pictures of Mia opening presents. I found the HDMI cable. It was sitting right there, used for the song lyrics. I plugged it in. The huge white screen behind me flickered. It turned blue. I took a breath. I looked at Barbara one last time. She had turned her head slightly. She was looking at me out of the corner of her eye. Her eyes were pleading. Don't, she seemed to say. Please don't. I didn't blink. We talk a lot about truth in this church, I said into the microphone. My voice was steady. It was the voice of a mother. And we talk a lot about protecting the innocent. I paused. I want to show you what truth looks like. And then I pressed the button. The first image appeared on the screen. It was enormous. It was 10 feet high and 12 feet wide. It was the photo of Mia's back. Because the screen was so big, you could see every detail. You could see the texture of her skin. You could see the tiny hairs on her neck. And you could see, with terrifying clarity, the red, raised welts that crisscrossed her small back. The stripes were angry. They were swollen. The skin around them was purple and yellow. It looked like a roadmap of pain. The sound in the room was instant. It wasn't a scream. It was a suck of air. 300 people gasped at the exact same time. It sounded like a sudden wind rushing through the sanctuary. Whoosh. Then silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Oh my God, a man in the second row whispered. It was loud enough to hear. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at the people. I saw their faces change. I saw confusion turn to horror. I saw hands fly up to cover mouths. I saw eyes go wide. This is my daughter, I said into the microphone. My voice was cold. I wasn't crying. I was past crying. She is 7 years old. I hit the arrow key on my laptop. The next image appeared. It was the close-up of her arm. The handprint. It was undeniable. You could see the thumb. You could see the 4 fingers. It was a bruise left by a hand that had squeezed with enough force to burst blood vessels. It was a grab, a violent, controlling grab. "This is a handprint," I said. "It belongs to an adult woman." I looked down at the front row. Barbara was trying to stand up. Her legs were shaking so bad she couldn't get her balance. She grabbed the back of the pew in front of her. Her face was gray. She looked like she was having a heart attack. "Reverend," she screeched. Her voice cracked. It was high and thin. "Stop this, stop her, she's lying." The Reverend was staring at the screen. His mouth was open. He looked from the giant image of the bruised arm to Barbara's perfectly manicured hands gripping the pew. He connected the dots. "It's fake," Barbara yelled. She turned to the crowd. She held out her hands. "She painted those on. She's crazy, she's trying to hurt me." Nobody moved. Nobody looked at her with sympathy. They were too shocked. I hit the key again. The next image was a screenshot of the text message Barbara had sent to David. Date: December 27th. From Mom, message. She was being difficult about the food again. I had to be firm. She needs to learn discipline before she gets any bigger. Don't coddle her. The words were 10 feet tall. I had to be firm. Discipline, I said to the room. That is what she calls it. She calls beating a 7-year-old girl with a leather belt discipline. I pointed a finger at Barbara. Grandma said she was too fat, I said. Grandma said she didn't deserve a second dinner roll. So Grandma took a belt from the closet and taught her a lesson. Barbara was standing now. She looked wild. Her hair had come loose from its spray. She looked around the room, searching for an ally. She looked for her friends. She looked for the people she had baked cookies for. "Martha," she cried out to the woman sitting 2 seats away. "Martha, tell them. Tell them I'm a good woman." Martha was an older woman. She had been Barbara's friend for 20 years. They sat together every Sunday. Martha stood up slowly. She looked at the screen. She looked at the bruises on the little girl she had known since birth. Then she looked at Barbara. Martha's face crumbled. It wasn't sadness. It was disgust. She looked at Barbara like she was looking at a cockroach. "Sit down, Barbara," Martha said. Her voice was shaking. "But sit down." Barbara flinched as if she had been slapped. She collapsed back onto the pew. She looked small. She looked shriveled. The room was buzzing now. The shock had worn off and the anger was setting in. I could hear the whispers turning into voices. "That's a child. She did that. I saw her at the store yesterday, acting like nothing happened. She's a monster." The Reverend finally moved. He walked over to me. He looked at the laptop. He looked at me. There were tears in his eyes. "Lena," he said softly, "is this true? Do you have proof?" "I have the doctor's report," I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "I have the police report. I have the recording of Mia telling me exactly what happened." I looked at the congregation. "I didn't come here to ask for your help," I said. "I didn't come here to ask for your pity. I came here to show you the truth." I unplugged the cable. The screen went blue, then it went black. The darkness felt heavy in the room. The images were gone, but they were burned into everyone's retinas. They would never unsee them. Every time they looked at Barbara, they would see those red stripes. I closed my laptop. Snap, I put it in my bag. "She sits in the front row," I said. "She leads your charity. She judges your children. She tells you how to live." I picked up my bag. "Now you know who she really is." I walked down the steps. I didn't rush. I walked with my head up. Barbara was sitting in the pew, her head in her hands. She was sobbing. But it wasn't a sad cry. It was a selfish cry. She wasn't crying for Mia. She was crying because her mask had been ripped off. She was crying because her stage had been burned down. As I walked past her row, she looked up. Her eyes were red and wet. Hate radiated off her like heat. "You ruined everything," she hissed at me. "You ungrateful fat," she caught herself. But I heard it. I stopped. I leaned in close so only she could hear. "I didn't ruin anything, Barbara," I whispered. "I just turned on the lights." I straightened up. I kept walking. The congregation parted for me like the Red Sea. People pulled their feet back to let me pass. They looked at me with a mixture of fear and respect. I walked all the way to the back doors. I pushed them open. The cold air hit my face again. It felt amazing. It felt like fresh oxygen. I walked to my car. My legs were shaking now. The adrenaline was leaving my body and the crash was coming. I sat in the driver's seat. I gripped the steering wheel. I let out a long, shaky breath. I had done it. I looked back at the church. The doors were closed. But I knew what was happening inside. I knew the murmurs were turning into shouts. I knew the Reverend was trying to regain control. I knew Barbara was sitting there, alone in a room full of people. I started the car. I drove away. I didn't look back. The fallout wasn't a single explosion. It was a chain reaction. It started in that sanctuary and spread through the town like a virus. I went back to my sister's house. I changed out of my war clothes and into sweatpants. I held Mia. We watched cartoons. I tried to act normal, but my phone was blowing up. Text messages from numbers I didn't have saved. I was at church. I am so sorry. We had no idea. Is Mia okay? I didn't answer them. I didn't want their belated sympathy. They had watched Barbara treat me like dirt for 7 years and said nothing. They only cared now because the violence was undeniable. The police came to my sister's house at 4 p.m. 2 officers, a man and a woman. They were kind. Mrs. Vance, the female officer said, "We've spoken to your lawyer. We've seen the medical report. We paid a visit to your mother-in-law." "And," I asked. "We issued a citation for assault," she said. "She has a court date. Because of her age and lack of prior record, she wasn't taken into custody today. But a judge will decide the restraining order tomorrow." I nodded. I knew she wouldn't go to jail immediately. Rich, older white ladies don't get dragged out in handcuffs on a Sunday. That's how the world works. But I also knew that for Barbara, jail would be easier than what was actually happening. Monday morning, the real punishment began. My lawyer called me. "She's been served the restraining order," he said. "She is legally barred from coming within 500 feet of Mia or you. If she tries, she gets arrested. For real this time." "Good," I said. Then the stories started coming in. My sister Sarah worked at the bank. She came home on Tuesday with wide eyes. "You won't believe it," she said. "Barbara came in today to make a deposit. The teller Linda, you know Linda. She literally put up the 'next window please' sign when Barbara stepped up. She walked away." "She refused to serve her?" I asked. "She refused to look at her," Sarah said. "The manager had to come over. Barbara was turning purple. She tried to complain and the manager just said, 'We'll handle your transaction, Mrs. Vance, but please keep your voice down.' He treated her like a nuisance. Like a crazy person." I smiled. It was a small, grim smile. On Wednesday, I heard about the grocery store. Barbara had gone to the high-end market she loved. She filled her cart. But as she walked down the aisles, people moved. It wasn't subtle, it was the parting of the waters. Women she had known for decades turned their backs to inspect cans of soup. Nobody said hello. Nobody asked about her garden. The silence was loud. It was a shunning. In a small town, a shunning is a death sentence. Then came David. He had been staying at a hotel. He had been blowing up my phone, leaving voicemail after voicemail. Some were angry, some were crying. I finally agreed to meet him at a coffee shop on Thursday. Neutral ground. When he walked in, he looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who had been sleepwalking and just woke up in the middle of a highway. He sat down across from me. He didn't order coffee. "You didn't have to do that," he said. His voice was hoarse. "At the church, you didn't have to humiliate her like that." "Yes, I did," I said. I crossed my arms. "She humiliated your daughter. She beat her. She made her feel small and ugly. I just showed people what she did." She's not doing well," David said. He looked down at the table. "She's sitting in the dark, Lena. She says everyone hates her. The garden club kicked her out. The charity board asked for her resignation. She has nothing." "She has her house," I said. "She has her money. She has her health. She has more than Mia had when she was crying in that guest room." David rubbed his face. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear, Lena, I didn't know she was hitting her." "You knew she was mean," I said. "You knew she starved her. You knew she bullied her. You let it happen because it was easier than fighting your mother." He didn't argue. He knew it was true. "I filed for divorce, David," I said. He looked up, tears in his eyes. "Lena, please, we can fix this. We can move, we can go to counseling." "No," I said. "You chose your side. For 7 years you chose her. You don't get to choose me now just because everyone hates her." I stood up. "You can see Mia on weekends," I said. "Supervised, but my job is to protect her. And that means protecting her from your family. And that includes you until you grow a spine." I walked out of the coffee shop. I felt a strange lightness in my chest. I had lost my husband. I had lost my family. I was a single mother with a battered car and a rented room, but I felt powerful. Barbara was in her mansion, surrounded by expensive furniture, completely alone. Her phone wasn't ringing. Her mailbox was empty except for the hate mail. Her reputation, which she valued more than her own soul, was ash. She wasn't arrested. She was erased. She was a ghost haunting her own life. And I was the one who had exorcised her. 3 weeks later, the legal dust began to settle. The divorce was moving forward. David didn't fight me. He was too broken to fight. He gave me full custody. He agreed to the restraining order against his mother. He was trying to salvage some relationship with Mia, but he knew he was on thin ice. Then I got the call. It was Mr. Henderson, my lawyer. Barbara's legal team reached out, he said. They want to offer a plea deal on the assault charge. She pleads no contest. She gets probation, mandatory therapy, and a permanent restraining order. No jail time. I expected that, I said. There's one more thing, he said. She wants to meet. She wants to deliver a personal apology. Her lawyer thinks it will help with the judge's sentencing if she shows remorse. She doesn't have remorse, I said. I know, Mr. Henderson said. You don't have to go. We can decline. I thought about it. I looked out the window at the snow melting on the lawn. I didn't have to go. I could just sign the papers and never see her face again. That would be the safe choice. But I realized I wasn't afraid of her anymore, and I wanted her to know that. I wanted to look her in the eye one last time, not as a victim, but as the victor. I'll go, I said. We met at her lawyer's office downtown. It was a fancy building with marble floors. I walked into the conference room. It smelled like lemon polish and anxiety. Barbara was sitting at the far end of a long mahogany table. I stopped in the doorway. The woman sitting there wasn't the Barbara I knew. The Barbara I knew was formidable. She was tall, stiff, impeccable. This woman was shrunken. She was wearing a gray cardigan that looked too big for her shoulders. Her hair, usually dyed a vibrant gold, was showing roots of steel gray. It looked dull. Her face was gaunt. Without makeup, her skin looked like crumpled paper. She looked 80 years old. She looked frail. When I walked in, she flinched. Physically jumped in her chair. She looked at me with eyes that were wide and wet. Fear, pure fear. I sat down opposite her. The table was 10 feet long, but it felt like inches. Mr. Henderson sat next to me. Her lawyer, a tired-looking man, sat next to her. Mrs. Vance, her lawyer said gently, Barbara has something she would like to say. Barbara cleared her throat. Her hands were on the table, clasping and unclasping. They were shaking violently. Lena, she whispered. Her voice was cracked. I stared at her. I kept my face blank. I was a mirror reflecting her own shame back at her. She took a shaky breath. Tears spilled out of her eyes. I am so sorry. I didn't say anything. I didn't mean to hurt her, she sobbed. I swear I wanted her to be perfect, like David was. I wanted her to fit in. I was worried about her future. I didn't mean to leave marks. I love her. She looked up at me, waiting for me to soften, waiting for me to say, it's okay, I understand. She was using her old manipulation. The I was only trying to help defense. It was an accident, she whispered. I just lost my temper. I'm an old woman. I made a mistake. I leaned forward. I put my elbows on the table. Stop, I said. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Don't lie to me, Barbara, I said. My voice was low and steady. You didn't lose your temper, she blinked, confused. Losing your temper is shouting, I said. Losing your temper is slamming a door. I locked eyes with her. You walked to the closet, I said. You opened the door, you chose a belt, a leather belt. You walked back to the living room, you told a 7-year-old girl to lift her shirt. Barbara looked down at the table. She was trembling. That takes time, I said. That takes planning. You had a minute to stop. You had 2 minutes to stop. You didn't. You struck her. Then you looked at the mark and you struck her again. She stammered. You didn't do it to teach her, I said. You didn't do it because you loved her. I paused. I wanted this to sink in. You did it because you hated her, I said. You hated that she wasn't you. You hated that she was happy. You hated that she ate with joy. You wanted to stomp that joy out of her. Barbara put her face in her hands and wailed. It was a pathetic sound. You meant to break her, I said. You wanted to make her small. You wanted to make her scared. So she would be easy to control, just like you broke David. She looked up, her face wet and blotchy. But you failed, I said. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who has just killed the hunter. She isn't broken, she is stronger than you, and she is stronger than David. I stood up, I smoothed my shirt. You are going to die alone, Barbara, I said. Her eyes went wide. You will stay in that big, clean house, I said. You will have your money, you will have your antiques, but the phone will never ring. No grandchildren will visit you. No one will bring you soup when you are sick. And when you take your last breath, the room will be empty. Lena, please, she begged. She reached a hand out across the table. I'm her grandmother. I looked at her hand. I didn't touch it. No, I said, you're just a stranger who used to know us. I turned to Mr. Henderson. I'm done. I walked to the door. I heard her sobbing behind me. Lena, wait. I didn't wait. I walked out of the office. I walked down the hall. I pressed the elevator button. I felt lighter than air. The heavy stone I had been carrying for 7 years, the fear of her, the need for her approval was gone. I had left it on that mahogany table. 6 months later, it was the middle of July. The sun was hot and bright. The sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. I sat on the back porch of my new house. It wasn't a mansion. It was a small, 2-bedroom bungalow on the edge of town. The paint on the railing was chipping a little. The screen door squeaked when you opened it. The grass in the backyard was a little too long, and there were dandelions everywhere. To Barbara, this house would be a nightmare. It was messy. It was imperfect. To me, it was a palace. I was drinking a glass of lemonade. The ice clinked against the glass. I watched the sprinkler oscillating in the yard. Ch. Mia was running through the water. She was wearing a bathing suit. It was bright neon pink with ruffles. It was loud. It was tacky. It was wonderful. She was screaming with delight. Mommy, watch this. She ran and threw herself onto the wet grass, sliding on her stomach. She got up covered in mud. Her hair was plastered to her face. She laughed. It was a deep belly laugh. I watched her body. Her legs were sturdy. Her stomach was round and soft. Her arms were strong. There were no bruises. There were no marks, just sun-kissed skin and mud. A year ago, this scene would have been impossible. If Mia had gotten mud on her clothes at Barbara's house, there would have been a lecture. There would have been shame. Mia would have cried and asked if she was bad. Now, she stood up, wiped the mud from her eyes, and jumped back into the water. She was free. David was living in an apartment across town. We were officially divorced. He came to pick Mia up every other Saturday for a few hours. They went to the park. They went to the movies. He was trying. He was a sad man, hollowed out by his mother's influence, but he was trying to learn how to be a person. He had finally cut contact with Barbara, too. It took losing his wife and daughter to make him see the truth, but he finally saw it. Barbara was a ghost story we didn't tell anymore. I heard she rarely left her house. I heard she ordered her groceries online now because she couldn't handle the stairs. I heard her garden was overgrown because the landscaping company fired her as a client. I didn't care. Her fate was her own. I had my own garden to tend. I put my glass down and walked out into the yard. The grass felt cool and prickly under my bare feet. Mommy, Mia yelled, come in, it's freezing. Is it? I asked. Yes, come on. I looked at my clothes. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I wasn't wearing a mother costume. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I ran right into the spray of the sprinkler. The water hit me cold, shocking, wonderful, I gasped. Mia shrieked and grabbed my hand. We danced in the cold water. We spun around in circles until we were dizzy. We fell down into the wet grass, staring up at the blue sky. My hair was wet. My face was dripping. I was covered in mud. I turned my head to look at my daughter. She was lying next to me, breathing hard, a huge smile on her face. She looked at me with eyes that were full of trust. You look funny, Mommy, she said. You look like a mud monster, I said. She giggled and poked my stomach. You're squishy. I am, I said. I am strong and squishy. Me too, she said proudly. I am strong and squishy. My heart swelled so big I thought it might burst. Yes, you are, I said. And you are perfect. She closed her eyes, basking in the sun. I thought about the trash bag she had carried home that Christmas. I thought about the fear. I thought about the woman I used to be, the woman who was afraid to speak, afraid to make a scene. That woman was gone. She died in that church. The woman lying in the grass was new. She was a wall. She was a sword. She was a shield. I had destroyed a monster without throwing a punch. I had burned down a kingdom with a laptop and a microphone. And here in this messy, muddy backyard I had built something new. I reached out and held Mia's hand. Her hand was small and warm in mine. I squeezed it gently. She squeezed back. I love you, Mommy, she whispered. I love you, Mia, I whispered back. We lay there for a long time, listening to the ch of the sprinkler, letting the sun dry our skin. It was a simple sound. It was a simple feeling. It felt like victory.